And now it's time to preview an upcoming game with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to do another Kickstarter preview. This time we're going to be looking at a combat or dueling-based card game called Duel of the Magi. Now it's going to be using this board in order to have a draft segment followed by a duel segment played by up to 2 to 4 players. So each player is going to build a deck from a set of cards that will be chosen by the players themselves. Each player will draft their deck from those chosen cards, put them together, and hopefully use their special ability in order to overcome their opponents. One first, and then the others subsequently. So how is the game going to play? Well, why don't we take a look at what the game's going to come with a reminder that these are prototype quality components. We will see how the game plays, then we'll come back here at the end and I'll sum it all up for you. Prior to beginning Duel of the Magi, each player in the game is going to get a special class, and you're actually going to draft these. High die roll will get to choose first, so if I rolled a 7, I'd probably be choosing towards the end. But high die roll will choose first, and you'll draft around the table. Each of these is going to give you a special flavor for your deck, hopefully to build around, and of course to use on your turn in order to make you a little bit better and give you a special ability. For example, the Necromancer says that you can play creatures from your deck, well, not from your deck, but from your discard pile, for 1 less than they actually cost. So they could die, go to the discard pile, and be played again, brought back in for 1 cheaper. However, if they die a second time, they are removed from the game, no longer to go to your discard, but instead unable to be played for the rest of that game. The Wizard is going to give you a different ability. It says that you may either play an additional power source on your turn, and you'll see more about what that means later, or you can pay 2 energy to draw an extra card at any time you would like. So, a nice ability there. The Sorcerer says that you can play elemental or creature spells for 1 less on your turn. However, only 1 less and only once per turn. And the Warlock says that you can play responses from your deck, from your discard pile. Much like the Necromancer's ability, you can play responses from your discard pile for 1 less, but they're then removed from the game after being used that second time or being used the first time, but from the discard pile. So depending on which one of these you get, you might have a different idea of what you'd like to build your deck around. Maybe you want more creatures, or maybe you want more responses, but regardless, it gives you a special flavor to your deck to use throughout the game. So here you can see some of the components set up for Duel of the Magi. Just a quick reminder that these are prototype, not final quality components, so what you may get in the final copy of the game will reflect the function of these cards you see here, but the form will not necessarily be the same. Now we're looking at one side of this board here, and this is the staging area that will be used for the draft section of the game that comes before the actual duel between the Magi. On this board, what you're looking at here is several different types of cards. In fact, we have 5 different types of cards, each of which is further divided into spell pods. So each of these piles of cards has within it different types of cards of the same class. For example, Boulder, which is an elemental spell, has a cost of 1 to play it, and it says deal 2 damage to a single creature or player. And there are going to be 6 of these cards on top here, followed by another elemental card. For example, Electrocute. This one says deal 5 damage divided amongst any number of creatures. So these are spells that you can play from your hand in order to deal damage or whatever the case may be according to the spell. Each of these different spells will have 6 of them in here, and that's considered to be 1 spell pod. So these 6 cards are the Boulder spell pod. In addition, we have response cards, which are going to be cards you can play to react to something that happens on another player's turn. You're going to have creature cards, which you'll be using to attack and defend in order to prevent dealing damage to yourself or hopefully deal damage to your opponents. You're going to have energy surges and energy sources, which are going to provide the power that you need in order to cast the different creatures or spell cards from your hand. And energy surges will be one-shot energies that you can use in order to get extra surges of energy in order to play things. So you'll see throughout this stack, there are not only energy surges, which are going to give you one-time boosts in energy, but there are also continuous power sources that you can use in the game in order to get more of your power in order to cast things. And we'll also have sometimes special abilities for when you use them or play them. Finally, you're going to see that you have variable cards. In this stack, there are 2 different types of variables. There are temporary variables, such as Burst of Strength here. This one, for example, says that target creature gets plus attack and plus defense equal to the number of power sources you control until the end of the turn. This one is basically going to go off. It's going to last until the end of the turn and then will go away. And of course, there is a pod of 6 of those cards in here. But you will also have things that are called constant variables, if we go a little bit further here, like eidetic memory. Eidetic Memory says that you pay 3 to cast it, and when you cast an elemental spell, you may go ahead and pay 3 extra energy. If you do so, you return the elemental spell of your choice to your hand after you're done with it. So you get to put it back into your hand instead of putting it into the discard pile. So basically return it so that you can use it again. So each of these stacks has different cards in it that you can choose from, and the way that this is going to work is that at the beginning of the game, each player is going to roll a d20. Now you can play between 2 and 4 players, and depending on what you roll, you're just looking for the high roll to see who will go first. So one of our players will roll high, and starting with that player, they're going to choose from any one of these piles, or look through all of the piles as they may like, and choose one pot of cards, either putting that card into the game or excluding it from the game. Once that player has made their choice, perhaps they decide to choose Boulder from the elemental section and put it into the game. The choice would then pass to the next player clockwise, who can choose from any of these stacks again. Now, it's important to note that only 4 in a 4-player game of these different pods per type will be chosen, so only 4 elemental pods will be chosen. In a 3-player game, this would be 3. In a 2-player game, it would be 2. Well, actually, it would still be 4, so it works slightly differently with the 2-player game. But note that there will always be a certain number of cards divided amongst the number of players in order to choose from later in the game. So, you're going to pass around one after another, choosing either a section of card to put into the game or to remove from the game until there are 4 of each type of card selected. From that point, you'll go into a draft. So now all of our players have gone through and they've selected the spell pods to be in the game. Each of these stacks contains 4 different spells. You can see an example of these 4 different spells laid out on the board. So we have 4 elementals, most of which deal with dealing damage to either creatures or players. For example, deal 5 damage to a combination of creatures, however you would like to divide that up. Or kill all of the creatures on the dueling ground. Deal 3 damage to a player, or deal 2 damage to a creature or player. We have some of our responses here. Some, for example, will deny the ability to cast a spell, such as deny here. Others will affect the amount of damage attacking creatures can do, so when something attacks you, you can go ahead and play Dust Cloud and roll a d6 for each creature attacking. If you roll a 1 or a 2, you will half the damage, a 6 will cancel all of it, but a 3, 4, or 5 will do nothing. You can go ahead and finalize somebody's turn. Playing this spell will immediately end their turn and move on to the next player's turn. Or you can play a Stone Wall, which will prevent the next 5 damage dealt to you. Creatures will have many effects, such as flying, or wings I should say, on this creature, which means that it flies over the other creatures in the game, meaning that if something doesn't have wings, it can't block something that does. You have creatures that can attack immediately when they come into play, or others that will bring creatures back from your discard pile into play. Some of them will even let you get some power sources from your deck to put into play immediately. Then we have the power sources and energy surges. Power sources will give you more power to use to cast different spells or creatures. For example, this one will give you 2, but can only be used every other turn and won't return to your unused power sources until 2 turns from when you use it, also letting you draw a card. We have surges like this one, which will get you 5 energy, but will cost you 2 energy to play, so really you net 3. Or we have things like the Thaumaturgic Rift, which says that when you play it, you have to return a power supply to your hand, but it will give you 2 every time you use it and draw you a card. So, pretty nice. And then we have some that will let you go get 2 basic power supplies from your deck and put them directly into play. We also have our variables, temporary and constant. Temporary variables such as this one here will let you gain control of somebody else's creature until the end of the turn. Or this one over here will let you kill a target creature. While some of the constant variables, such as the onslaught levy here, says that each time someone attacks you, they must pay 2 energy for each creature attacking, and if they don't, it can't attack. After you've chosen which pods are going to be available, shuffled them into a deck, and revealed 4, players are going to again roll a d20 to see who drafts. Or you can simply go ahead and use the player who drafted the last card from the set to draft first in this actual individual deck construction period. Anyhow, they're going to choose 1 card from those available and place it off to the side in their own area, then replenishing that card from the same stack that the row it came from until everyone has drafted all of these cards. So there are just enough cards for everyone to draft 30. Once they've drafted 30, they will combine them with 10 basic power sources, which simply provide 1 energy, and they will make their deck, shuffling it up and preparing to begin the game. Now that each player has their deck built from the draft and they each have their own kind of class that they can use in order to specialize their playstyle, each player is going to draw a hand of 7 cards. Now this game is not a free-for-all, and at the beginning of the game you're going to have one other player that you must target to eliminate before you can attack the others. Each player will roll a d20, and the high roll will attack the low roll, we'll say these two players, and the two middling rolls will attack each other, we'll say the players that are across from each other this way. You must eliminate your opponent before you're able to attack any of the other players on the board and win the game. Now that we've got this all set up, each player is going to have their hand, and you're going to roll one more time to see who gets the high roll to start the game. High roll will start, and then you'll pass around the table in order of turns. When you have your cards, the first thing you're going to do on each of your turns is you're going to check and see if you have anything that's been used on prior turns. Be it creatures that have used actions such as attacking and need to move back to the cast creature zone, or resources that you've used to play spells in the used resource zone that will return to the unused resource zone in front of you. You'll see that all of these areas are outlined in a player's play area. So you have your used resource zone, your cast creature zone, the action zone, the constant variable zone, an unused resource zone, a deck, and a discard pile area. And each player has their own to keep track of all of their cards. The second thing you're going to do on your turn after you've moved everything that's been activated on previous turns back to the cast creature or unused resource zone is play a resource if you happen to have one. And hopefully you will, because resources drive this game. Our player is going to look at his hand and see what he has. And he'll say that he has a basic power source, which is going to be in everyone's deck. Everyone will have 10 of these. And he has a Thaumaturgic Rift. Now he can't play this one because it requires that he return a power source to his hand when he does so. So he's going to play his basic power source, placing it into his unused resource zone. After playing a resource, he would move on to his first spell casting phase. Now there are two of these phases. You can either use the first or the second one, but not both. So if you decide to forego the first, you move to the attacking step, and you look and see if you have any creatures in your cast creature zone. If you do, and that creature did not come out on this turn, you would be able to use that creature in order to attack. Let's say that we're a little further along and the player had played their Reanimator, and they had used the 4 energy that it requires to do so, and they had this creature in their cast creature zone. Now when this creature came in, it would allow them to look through their discard pile and see if there were any other creatures in there that they would like to bring back. It also lets them look through everyone else's discard pile, so they may have several choices of creatures to reanimate, bringing back into the play area. If we're past that point and the Reanimator's in the play area, he can attack his opposing player, since he's not been eliminated from the game yet, in order to try and do damage to him. This creature has 3 attack, you can see in the bottom right hand corner, and 3 defense. So when he attacks, he moves him to the action zone, and he targets this player. This player, if he were to have creatures, could choose to block, and damage would be assigned appropriately. This player assigning 3 damage to the defending creature, and either killing it or not, and the other creature dealing its damage back to Reanimator, potentially killing Reanimator or not. Maybe it's an equal block. If you've played any type of collectible card game, you'll see something very similar to this in many of them in terms of how damage is dealt, so you may already be familiar. Once that's done, either the creature's blocked or it's not, and if it's not blocked, damage will be dealt directly to the player. In the term of life points, you start with 20 and you want to reduce your opponent to 0 in order to eliminate them from the game. If it's not blocked, that damage will go through, but if it is, either the creatures will die or they'll simply deal no damage. After the combat step, you're going to move back to the second spell casting phase, and if you did not use the first one, you may now cast spells. I would look through my hand to see if there were any cards I could cast using the energy I have left. For example, I could cast my Boulder for 1 energy in order to do 2 damage to target creature or player. So I would move the resource from the unused to the used resource area, and I would play my Boulder, dealing 2 damage to whatever target I would like in the terms of gameplay. And I would put this into my discard pile, assigning that 2 damage and moving on. Once you're done with your first attack, or your first spell casting step, your attack step, and your second potential spell casting step, you'll move to the discard step. At this point, you're going to first check and see how many cards you have in your hand. In this case, I have 4. The maximum is 7, and if you have more than 7, you must discard. But unlike many other games, in this game you may discard any cards you would wish to your discard pile. So I could throw away any of the 4 cards remaining in my hand. This could be because I'm seeking more power sources, or because I'm looking for a specific card out of my deck, whatever the case may be. But I'm going to discard down as much as I would like. Once I've reached that point of discarding, I'm going to draw back up, but only if I'm under 5 cards. If I have 5 or more cards, I will draw nothing. If I have under 5, I'm going to draw back up to 5 from my deck, replenishing my hand and giving me more cards to use in future turns. Once the players are done with that, or the player is done with that, they're going to pass the turn to the next player on their left, who will again begin the same steps. They're going to pick up their hand, and they're going to start by reactivating anything they've used on previous turns, and then playing a power source from their hand. Again, likely in the first turns, this is going to be a basic power source, but these will advance as the game goes on, giving you more power and more abilities. Then they're going to go on to spell casting and seeing if they want to cast any spells, then combat, another spell casting if they didn't use the first, followed by discarding, with the objective being eliminating the person that you were targeted to eliminate at the start of the game. Now, don't forget that you all have abilities that you can use throughout the game, and these are drafted before you draft your deck. So the wizard says once each turn you may actually either play an additional power source during your turn, or you may spend 2 energy to draw an additional card. So you're going to want to keep these in mind, keeping your special abilities in the back of your head in order to figure out how they can best facilitate you during the game. Anyhow, you want to deal at least 20 damage to your opposing player that you're targeting at the beginning in order to remove them from the game. At that point, it's a little bit more of a free-for-all for you, as you can target the other players on the board in order to remove them, hopefully being the last mage standing and winning the Duel of the Magi. So you want to, of course, build the best deck, best utilize that deck and your abilities in order to remove all of the other players, and the last mage standing is the winner. Well, there you have it. That is Duel of the Magi up on Kickstarter and looking for your support right now. As you may have figured, this is a game that has a lot of strategy laced throughout it. So you have the initial choice of a class that's going to somewhat dictate what choices you would like to make during the drafting, or it should have an effect on what you'd like to do during the drafting. Then you reach the portion of the part where you're choosing spell pods or card pods. On which ones would you like to eliminate based on what the abilities of your opponents are or what you think their playstyles are, versus which ones you would like to have into the game. So you need to make that choice. Once you've done that and you've shuffled the piles together, creating the actual draft area, you need to decide which cards you think are best for your deck, either because of your class or because of your individual playstyle. Maybe you want a lot of creatures, maybe you want a lot of spells, perhaps you're a more reactionary player and you want to have reactions that you can play, or maybe you want to take stronger power sources so that you can get things out quicker or draw more cards. Those are all choices you have to make, and you're not really pegged into making any of them. You can kind of diversify as much as you'd like, or focus if you want, and take one strategy as opposed to a more diverse strategy. Once you've done that, you have the choices that are inherent in combat card games. When do you play specific spells? Is there a right time versus a wrong time? Is it good to attack, or would you like to sit back and have creatures available for defense? Do you want to use the special abilities of a creature, or do you want to try and pull things back from your graveyard using specific spells? There's lots of choices to be made. In addition, since you are kind of focused on attacking one player at the beginning of the game, you don't have the situation where everybody gangs up on one player in a multiplayer card game, which is a nice addition. You have to focus on one person, eliminate that person from the game, and then kind of branch out from there in order to hopefully remove the others. The aspect of discarding cards and drawing back up is new, to me at least, in this type of game, and I think it's one that adds a nice touch. If you don't have what you'd like, you can throw away as many cards as you want and draw 5 more if you discard your whole hand, cycling through what you have in order to get cards back, in order to hopefully draw what you need to progress. So it has a nice kind of built-in mechanic there, which lets you progress the game even if you happen to be stuck at a specific point. So all of that combined is what the game is. I think it sounds interesting. If it sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out on Kickstarter. I'm sure they'd be happy to have your support.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.